Okay, greetings. Welcome everybody to FlaskCon and to this talk. This talk is about extending Flask using the Flask Plugins API. It's more like investigating how plugins work in Flask and how to make the life of Flask developers easier using plugins, and the approaches different plugins have taken. And I can assure you that Flask has a very nice plugins development experience. And so welcome to FlaskCon 2024. And about me, so I help organize our local Python user group called PyMug, and FlaskCon and also PyCon Africa. I'm with you open source, and this is slide. I will upload it at this link. So yes, so I don't know, David was asking about the handles. So it's os.system as the same on Twitter, and I'm not on Mastodon, I'm on Fastodon. So apparently I'm missing out on PyCon US on Mastodon, so because I'm on Fastodon. So anyways, yes, let's begin. So why talk about the plugins API? It's to encourage people to maintain Flask projects. Why people know how Flask works? People normally don't want to contribute to plugins unless they need it. But for example, if there was like a management system, let's say a hotel management system, and people see that, they would immediately decide, think like, if they're a regular contributor, they would think like, maybe let me contribute because I already know Flask. This is built in Flask, and I have an idea how this works. So let me just let me just build contribute to this project. But if this is a Flask plugin, people are more afraid to dive into plugins because don't know, maybe it's different from the end user Flask experience. And the Palettes has started an initiative called the Palettes Echo, like David mentioned before in his introduction. When there are plugins that are interesting, has a nice standard, how they test and documentation, etc. Then after some time, the maintainer find that they are swamped with whatever work they have, and they can no longer maintain the plugins. So the Palettes has the Palettes Echo organization on GitHub to maintain those plugins. So you just tell the Palettes maintainers, hey, I have this project. I believe the project has a nice standard, but I cannot devote time to it. So can you please maintain it? So the Palettes will transfer the project from the owner's repository to Palettes Echo, and they will try to maintain it. But of course, it needs people. Like if plugins increase, the plugins to maintain, they increase in number. So we need people to maintain. So we need people who know how to maintain plugins. So we need people to get started. And you know, it pretty much starts with creating your own plugins. I mean the typical developer experience, trying a hand at your own plugins, but it's not mandatory, but sometimes it starts like that. But to encourage people to maintain projects, and also to encourage people to write extensions, because if people are already plugin authors, they are already maintaining plugins, to contribute to a plugin is very easy because they already know what plugins are about and how plugins they go around doing their job. So it's very easy to contribute for them to contribute to plugins. And of course, at the same time, by writing plugins, we improve the Flask development experience. Like people will choose Flask. Why? Maybe because there's an easy integration. Like some plugin makes like very easy for them, and it's not available in other frameworks, so they just use Flask just because of that. I know it doesn't sound realistic, but it happens that people chooses a framework based on the ecosystem. And also to just understand extensions in general, how they go about in Flask. So let's first discuss different approaches to plugins in Python. Like Python doesn't define. I'm not talking about C Python, like the C API or something like that. I'm talking about Python, like the front-end user experience. Like Python doesn't define a standard, like for plugins, you should do plugins like that or whatever. But package maintainers, they have found ways for people to extend their packages. So some different approaches. For example, if you go to the PI documentation, you will find some pretty much like starting points about coding plugins for your projects. One is just to have to just load every plugins that the package name has a certain prefix. For example, if my project starts with fruit underscore, I will just find all available packages. I will just load, I'll just programmatically import all packages that start with fruit underscore. So that's one way to build a plugin system. Another way is to, like, you have a list. The developer manually lists like plugins, and for example, Django is like that. So you have a list of different names. You put the name of the extensions that you want, etc. And the project, when it starts, so it will go through all those through the list, find those names, and load those. So, and then of course, since well, that's about the loading part. And then normally projects, they have like something like signals or whatever, or some hooks so that people can know when certain events happen, like the app has just started to boot, has finished booting up, etc. So, and then it will see whether the plugin like developers have put any event for when those events happen. And also some people, they use like a plugin manager to just manage plugins. Like, I don't know, the plugin manager, they define like some standards, which is like they define. So a plugin manager, a very opinionated way to go about plugins. But fortunately, Flask plugins, like it's very simple to write plugins for Flask. Like relatively, like it's very simple. When you create an app, yes, you can see my mouse. When you create an application, for example, you have a plugin, then you pass the object that you created into the init app method, and then you have another plugin, you do the same. So the app object that you created will pass through this plugin and through this plugin. That's why sometimes the order of plugins matter in Flask. Like if you define a plugin before another, it might throw some errors, etc. So that's because that's how we do plugins in Flask. So a bit about the behind the scenes of this. So we have seen that normally plugins, they expose a method called initApp so that people can pass in the application object. But when we see the Flask ecosystem, not all projects, they respect this convention, and so this points to the fact that we can actually name that method however we like. So we'll show examples later on, but it's just saying that Flask like plugins development is easy. It's really it's really very nice, very interesting, and very easy. So yes, I was saying that we don't really need to name like methods init app, but it's very recommended because users can easily understand plugins if you follow the conventions, and users have certain expectations that they want to, like, has a certain expectations. Okay, so, and even in the docs you say that the most common pattern, the init app, is actually only the most common pattern. So Okay, also this point, and this is the hello world extension about Flask. In the docs you will find, which is basically you have a class which just has an init app method which takes an app argument. So I think this is pretty much like very standard. And then in your package, you just let your users import the class, which I think everyone has developed a package, like they know how to let users like import something. And then the user, they will say like, I don't know, plugin is equal to hello extension, open and close bracket. And then they will say plugin dot init app, and then they will pass the app. And that's it. Users are using your plugin. Like, it's really that easy. Actually, the hardest part about Flask plugins is to understand how Flask works. Like the plugins themselves, they don't have like something extraordinary like going on, but the real thing is about knowing Flask. So if you know Flask well, you'll be great plugin developers. Like, you'll have more ideas on how to make the life of people easier. And then, for example, we all know about the before request decorator. Like we use it like as a decorator before function, like what we'd like to do before a certain request comes, etc. But before request is also used in the plugin world to execute certain like a callback, to execute what you want to execute when before a request comes in. So when the plugin loads, it knows that before a request comes in, I must call this function. So it acts the same as if you did the decorator. So actually, if you like know this, you can just translate it into a plugin experience. It's pretty much how this works. So building extensions is about knowing Flask well and knowing Flask internals, but knowing Flask, at least the API. The most important thing is knowing the Flask API well, which is about one page. So you just sit down one afternoon, you go over the documentation page, which is this. You just like read this page, see the URL like 3.0.x/API. So you just read that in one afternoon, and you are good to go to like you are good to go. So, and some like why the internals, like they matter, because you know sometimes you are presented with situations where you'd want to tackle, for example, like knowing about the current app, when and when not to use it, what does G represent, like global variables, like G is for global variables per request and per thread, under the correction of David, of course. And also for the current app, for example, to get the real app of the current app. So to do something like that, like those are in edge cases where you would face, and maybe you'd want to go deeper, but it's about knowing Flask internals and like the Flask API. Like the plugin side, there is no great thing ongoing that you don't know as a Flask developer. So Flask plugins is about knowing Flask. That's amazing. Like you don't have to know like extra stuffs to develop plugins. So normally one great starting point is to have a plugin which defines default configurations. So the plugin, when you load it, it will just define default configuration for your Flask app. And let's have a look at some real life like plugins which have been published on the package index. For example, there's this, I found this package called Flask Table Icons, which when we inspect, so we see that the structure is just, you have a class here, you have the init method here, and then you have the init app. You have the init app, and then you see that the purpose of the package is to enable icons to be used in templates. So you see, like, it's registering like the blueprints, and it has a static path, it's registering, and etc. It's setting its config, but nothing that when you look, you cannot understand. It's something that you are doing on the end user side. It's just like you are developing a Flask application, but you are just taking this and you are putting it in on the plugin side. And then it defines some macros, render icon, field CSS, that users they can use. So it registers a static path, the macros are loaded, users can then use those macros defined here, and then it has all the icon in this one file. So it's very simple, like people once they install and use this plugin, so those icons are available when they use the two macros that are defined here. So this is all that it takes to build a useful plugin. And for example, another plugin which is called Flask Monitoring Dashboard, which is an example of where they don't use init app. For example, this is a plugin that is that the author has put a lot of effort in. Like you have dashboards for requests and whatever else, but it's very simple to integrate. You just dashboard.bind app. So they chose to that's their hello world example. So you don't need to have a function named init app. That just for illustration purposes, I consider it as a bad practice, because well, it's a bit confusing how they're doing things. And let's take Flask SQL Alchemy for example. The init app looks like that. So you'd see that they're doing some checks and putting some default configurations, checking if something exists, if something doesn't exist. But it's pretty much clear what it's doing. So you can see like more like it's all in the init app, but it's all about integrating with SQL Alchemy, putting like some defaults to false, for example, etc. So one trick then is when you are diving into a plugin, like people, for example, Flask SQL Alchemy, people tell it's a very difficult plugin to dive in, etc. But it's easy. Just on GitHub, just search for init app. You go there, you see what it does, and then those definitions, you see what it does, and then you get an idea what the plugin is doing. For every Flask plugin, it's just simple. You just search for init app, you go, you see what it's doing, and then it's even Flask admin, you go, you do the same. Search for init app, because the conventions of the folders, they differ, they name it however they like, the authors. But don't worry, just go to GitHub, like the search bar, just type in init app, go to the function body, and then see what you're looking for. And then of course, once again, when plugins reach their end of life, so see the Pallets Echo as an organization that can support you, instead of like just flying away and not releasing, not maintaining, not responding to issues. So really, and also pass the words if you know people who have great Flask plugins but they are not maintaining them anymore. So you see the Pallets Echo. Okay, and that's really my 20 minutes of talk. So do you have any question?